Hi, I'm Adriana from FoamBlast, and today I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about choosing a motor. So the first thing we're going to talk about is form factor. There's going to be three main sizes if we ignore rivals. You have the 130s, they're the smallest of the bunch. They'll fit in any blaster, really. Next size up, 132s. That's the official manufacturer name, since there's no Mabushi naming standard, I think is what it's called. Some people call them 140s, 150s, 160s. They're 132s. It's all the same. People say that you don't have to cut the shells, but you probably do, unless you're like super good at soldering. So just, be aware of that. Next size up, the beefiest, 180s. Definitely have to shell cut, but they're typically stronger, so, eh. Number 2, amperage. Amps measure current. The stall current is the maximum amount your motor can draw. So this happens when you're accelerating from standstill or when the flywheels get jammed. Each motor has its own stall current, so you need to add them together. And the amperage scales with the voltage, so you need to add in a safety cushion as well. About 20% would be good. To find the burst amperage, you need to look at your motor spec sheet and find the stall current. Multiply that by the number of motors you have. Multiply that by 1.2, which is your 20% safety margin. And that'll give you the burst amps that your battery needs to be able to handle. And we'll talk about batteries in a later video. Next up, we have RPMs. There's a sweet spot you're looking for flywheels. If it's too low, there's not enough acceleration. This means you get suboptimal velocity and range. If it's too high, it's like you're doing a burnout, and you could get more dart wear, inconsistency, and maybe a slightly lower velocity as well. The optimal RPM range is argued about constantly. People typically say it's between 30,000 and 38,000, but from our testing we've found that it's more like 32,000 to 36,000. So try to find a motor with RPM in or near that range. Torque. Torque determines the spin-up time and how strong a motor pushes a dart through the squeezing force of flywheels. More torque gives you a faster response when you pull the rev trigger and more compatibility with high-crush flywheel cages. Also, as heat increases, torque decreases. Mostly this is important with high-crush cages when you're playing outside on a hot day for a long time. Lastly, we have S ratings. 2S and 3S LiPo packs are the most common batteries in our hobby. 2S packs have 7.4 volts, while 3S packs have 11.1 volts. RPM, torque, and amps all scale with voltage, so if you run a 2S motor on a 3S battery pack, you get about 30% higher numbers in every category. However, if you remember from earlier, higher RPMs aren't always a good thing. Also, running on higher than intended voltages can greatly shorten the lifespan of your motor. LiFePO and nickel metal hydride batteries are also options. However, make sure you look really closely at the voltages and match them to the motor spec sheet as closely as possible. If you click here, Nerf has an awesome spreadsheet that lists all the specs I talked about for the most common motors in Nerf, and that's also going to be in the description. That's the basics about motors. Form factor, amperage, RPM, torque, S rating. So before asking on Reddit or Facebook, just think about farts. Farts.
Oh my god, this is so terrible.
It's great. What are you talking about?